It's the start of a new sumo tournament and a new era of sumo as Yokozuna Hoshoryu makes his debut. But the question is, will he truly prove that he is Yokozuna material in his debut at the rank? We'll discuss it today on the New to Sumo
Let's start
podcast.
the show. New to sumo, here we go.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be doing a podcast again and to have Sumo coming up real soon. We're super excited. We now have the Banzuke is out. We know where everyone's going to be ranked. But the biggest talking point about a month ago was when Hoshoryu got promoted to Yokozuna. And we now have our first Banzuke with him at the very top. And we got lots of other interesting promotions and demotions to talk about as well as giving our predictions for who we think is going to win the tournament and giving our Kachi Clash predictions, which we always love getting into. So, where do you want to start us off today?
Oh, I guess we might as well start off right at the tippy top. I mean, the more things change, the more they stay the same almost. You know, for the past couple of tournaments, it really has sort of been a three-horse race with Hoshoryu, Onosato, and Kotozakura are now Yokozuna and two Ozeki respectively, you know, really trying to cement themselves as the big guy. And there's always been Teruno Fuji, our ex-Yokozuna, lurking in the background. But now that he's gone, the spotlight is really on just these three guys to prove that they are the future of sumo. Now, between the three of them, the absolute biggest pressure is on Hoshoryu, obviously, as the Yokozuna. You know, he is now expected to pretty consistently average around 12 wins per tournament, something that he's only done three times in his entire career thus far. So it'll really be interesting to see how he adapts to his new role. What do you think?
Yeah, and returning to that point you raised in the very intro of the video of Yokozuna material, obviously there's a lot of talk back and forth about the promotion to Yokozuna. And personally, I think it just made sense. I think it was the right time. And the question of whether Hoshoryu was quote unquote ready to be a Yokozuna is in no way a question of whether he is an extremely talented wrestler and one of the best. We all know that he is. It's more so to do with the expectations that are now going to be on top of him for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of his sumo career. And this is where it really starts. Is he going to continue to get just a winning record every tournament, which is itself a very impressive skill to do that so consistently? But that's not enough anymore. Now it's got to be at least double-digit victories. You can't even start a tournament 0-3 without being expected to drop out with some kind of injury now that you're Yokozuna. So he can't be losing to rank and filers anymore at the pace that he typically used to without getting questions. And so there's a very different kind of pressure that's going to be on Hoshoryu now that he's Yokozuna. And I think that's the thing that us and other members of the community had been asking before the decision was made final. Now that he's the Yokozuna, I mean, I'm so excited for him. Some people, when they're given opportunities like this and promotions and in different walks of life, they really rise to the occasion and they reach a new height. You see it a lot of times in sports when a player is entering their contract year, kind of like the big moment where they're about to be really evaluated and they have some of their best performances ever. So I could totally see that happening for Hoshoryu. I think it's going to be a new brand of sumo than what maybe we've seen from him up until this point in his career. So there's going to be a lot more eyes than usual on Hoshoryu. For the longest time, he was one of several, and now he is the big man at the very top, all by himself.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk forever about the, expectations that are on Hoshoryu, the doubters and, the people who think that, it's his time. But the fact of the matter is, whether we love it or loathe it, he is the guy, and the expectation is that he will be in title contention all the way up until the final weekend or so. And we might as well start talking about the guys who should be challenging him for that, starting with Onosato, who still has never had a losing record. Granted, he's only had about, what, a dozen tournaments already. So, I mean, he already won two tournaments, granted at lower levels. He's someone that is always in should always be in contention for a title, at least before we get started. And then we've got Kotozakura, who is in the very awkward position of being Kadoban for his first time. That means if he had a losing record last tournament, and if he has a losing record this tournament, he will be demoted to Sekiwake. And from there, if he doesn't get at least 10, he won't bounce back up, and he'll have to start his Ozeki run all over again. But he was injured in the last tournament, doesn't seem to be injured now. He's another guy that should give Hoshoryu a run for his money all the way to the very end.
It was such a shame the way it went in the last tournament because obviously he had just been coming off an incredible tournament win back in November where him and Hoshoryu, faced off until the very final day. And then in the last tournament to have not even been a part of the action from the very beginning was really disappointing to see. I would love to see Kotozakura get back to his best. It became very obvious that he had to be dealing with some kind of injury with the performances he was putting up in the last tournament. So if he's himself again, I can't wait to see that. And if he is, that's certainly going to be another person who's going to be getting in Hoshoryu's way as he tries to now win his next tournament. But really, these top three guys have to be considered. At the very least, like these three are right up there with the favorites for the tournament. There might be one or two others that will throw into the mix, but undoubtedly Hoshoryu, Onosato, and Kotozakura have great chances of winning this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we see our new Sekiwake Oho, who first time in the Sanyaku ranks and, his Sanyaku debut is as a Sekiwake. He is the number 5 guy in all of sumo. And, he's been a very hard guy to read through his career because, he had that amazing 12-3 where he did sort of give Hoshoryu the chance to become Yokozuna because if he loses that match to Kinbozan, our Maegashira 5, if he loses that match, Hoshoryu doesn't even get into the playoff. Kinbozan wins the whole thing, and Hoshoryu, and maybe we're looking at this Bansuke in a completely different way, but he did what he had to do against the rank and file, and he as the grandson of one of the greatest Yokozuna of all time, maybe this is his moment. This is, where he finally shows the kind of consistent winning sumo that he hadn't really seemed to find until just a couple of months ago. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and very curious to see if he can pull another double digit tournament because that what we saw in January is not his personal norm.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, he's often been in and around the mix, but never quite like he did in the last tournament. And I'd love to just see him continue to string wins together like it. He's typically been in the mid to high Maegashira for the longest time, so this is definitely going to be a new position for him. But it should be nice, hopefully, to be punching down for once and not in those positions where he's constantly having to fight Sanyaku members from the outside looking in. So maybe he'll adapt well to this new position. And then just briefly going through some of our other Sanyaku members, we have Steady Daisho. You never doubt that he's going to be in there. Kirishima is back up. Happy to see him. I must give myself tremendous credit for believing in Kirishima in the last tournament because when he started out 0-3, people were wondering, what was going on with him, and then to win, what was it, 8 straight? Was really amazing. To win with an 11-4 record after starting 0-3 is not easily done. So happy to see him pulling that off and getting back into the Sanyaku, where I think many people believe he belongs. And then of course there's Abi, who's just always ready to spoil someone's tournament, and I'm sure he'll have his moments of that in this one.
Yeah, Abi just loves to play the role of someone else's spoiler. If he may not be, a title contender, but if you're a title contender, the one guy that you don't want to see is Abi. And I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. I think Abi gives Hoshoryu his day one loss. I'm fairly certain that Abi will be Hoshoryu's day one opponent. I think when he faces Hoshoryu, he's going to beat him. That is
Oh,
my bold prediction, to my first of maybe several bold predictions to start this show.
sounds great. Yeah, everyone's gonna have to keep you to your word on that one. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, feel free to
So
hold my feet to the fire there.
Absolutely. So I think maybe the next step is for us to just start talking about Kachi Clash. And for those who are newer to the channel, Kachi Clash is a great website that's out there, one of many where sumo fans can share their votes of who they think is going to have the best tournaments in sumo. And the way it works with this one and many others is that you pick a team of five wrestlers from each of these different categories of rankings. So you have one person from the Yokozuna or Ozeki ranks, one person from the Sekiwake or Komusubi ranks, one person from M1 through M5, one from M6 through M10, and one through M11 through M17, usually, in this case, M18. So, anyway, in typical fashion, I guess we should just start off by shouting our picks at the same time for the top.
All right, let's start at the very top, the between the Yokozuna and Ozeki on three. One, two, three. Onosato.
Onosato. All
Yep,
right.
we're in lockstep already.
Yes, so I think for me, one of the ways I'm thinking about this, and this is going to be the case for a lot of my picks, is that I just want to have the team of the five guys that if I had them standing behind me, I would be most confident. You know, let's say I'm in a
Mhm.
bar fight or something. These are the five guys I want. Not entirely about size, but more so what I mean is that, Hoshoryu and Kotozakura, extremely high ceilings, obviously. But Onosato is just someone that I always feel like every single tournament he's putting up really, really competitive numbers. He has never had less than 9 wins in a tournament. And for me, that's someone that you want for Kachi Clash. You want a reliable set of hands who's almost a lock to get double digits at the very top. Kotozakura, I mean, last tournament had 5 wins, just for reference. And Hoshoryu obviously has had some really, really excellent tournaments recently, but I think he would be a very close second for me, Hoshoryu. All three of them are great picks. I mean, I don't want to put down either of the other two options, but for me, Onosato has been my guy for several tournaments now, and I'm just sticking with him. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's just, until somebody shows that he can lose more matches than he wins in a tournament, there's really no reason not to stay the course. I have my doubts about Hoshoryu's, Yokozuna debut, and I'm understandably worried that Kotozakura maybe isn't at 100%. And Onosato, he's never had fewer than 9 wins in the top division. So, if we want to talk about ceiling, then obviously Kotozakura or Hoshoryu are the guy. I mean, they've both had, 13 win tournaments in the past two Basho, but Onosato just seems like the steady hand, a guy that at worst he will, give you 9 or 10 wins. At best, he'll win the whole darn thing. So that's why Onosato's my pick.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think Onosato also just being one of the only people in recent memory to win multiple tournaments. Terunofuji had won two over the course of a year.
Hmm.
Hoshoryu hasn't won two in the course of a year. His first win was July 2023, and then his second was in the last tournament. Kotozakura hadn't even won one until 2 tournaments ago. So Onosato has just that consistency. He feels like someone who is always, always in the Yusho race every single time he competes, and that's who I want anyway. Oops, I just messed up the screen a bit here. So next up in the next category, we have our Sekiwake and Komusubi, Daisho, Kirishima, Oho, and Abi. And I guess we could say our picks on three.
All right. One, two, three.
Daisho,
Daisho. Yep.
yes.
Mr. Consistency. At worst, you're going to get like 8 or 9 wins, barring an injury. At best, you'll probably, get a safe 11. I mean, listen, the other three guys all have, that 12 win potential. I mean, I think we've seen them all win 12 at least once in the past year, but they all have much lower floors than Daisho. Kirishima, you never know what you're going to get. Abi, you never know what you're going to get. Oho is just a bit of an unknown quantity at this high rank. So, why not go with the steady hands of, Daisho's elite pushing and thrusting? Plus, I shouldn't make the Yusho case because Kirishima has more than him. He's got the same number as Abi. The point is, Daisho is exactly where he should be at Sekiwake, and I just don't know about the other three. Not right now, at least.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is the name of the game when it comes to Kachi Clash. Any of
Hmm.
these guys, in theory, could win a tournament. We've seen Kirishima do it several times. Abi's done it before. But when it comes to making your predictions for a tournament like this, consistency is key. And Daisho has had one losing record since 2022.
Jeez.
That's the guy you want. Hopefully, I'm getting that stat correctly. And also, this is a good opportunity for a quick plug. If anyone is interested in joining our league in Kachi Clash, just drop your username in the comments below or send us an email and we'll add you and we'll be able to compete against each other in the tournaments on Kachi Clash. It's a lot of fun. So next up, we have the M1 through M5 ranks. Wakataka Kage. I'll go through these quickly because there's a lot of
Yeah,
names.
I'll say them real quick.
Great.
Wakataka Kage, Wakamoto Haru, Gonoyama, Chiyoshoma, Tilbizaru, Takanosho, Takayasu, Ichiyamamoto, Ura, and Kinbozan.
Excellent. And our pick on three.
One, two, three.
Wakataka
Wakataka Kage
Kage, of
Kage.
course. Okay, so we might have the same exact team in this tournament.
Maybe. We'll
Probably.
see.
In fact, I have a good feeling that we will, but it might end up surprising me. Again, when it comes to this, I just want to pick the guys who I know can consistently do it. And for me, Wakataka Kage, he belongs where he's at. He's never been a question that like he can beat the guys that he's going to be up against. This is a really, really tough category here. Very, very volatile because the guys who are ranked M1 through M5 are typically facing off against Sanyaku constantly in a tournament. They're going to be facing the Yokozuna, Ozeki, Sekiwake, and Komusubi for the whole tournament, so, especially in the first week. So this is where some guys will start the tournament 1-6, 0-7 from this position because their opposition is just so fierce. But Wakataka Kage is one of only a few on here who are consistently beating those guys. And that's why he's my pick. Also, I just love him.
I understand that. He Wakataka Kage wasn't even my initial pick. I first started with Takayasu because he's just so good. Then I went to Wakamoto Haru because he's got that edge. But within this whole group, I mean, Wakataka Kage, he's the one guy that we know can contend for a title because he's the only one of the 10 that's ever won one. So he is a guy that you can put your trust in. I know he had his difficulties from the Komusubi level, but he still, went on to win 7 matches, which isn't bad for a guy that's, in the Sanyaku for the first time in about 2.5 years. So maybe he just needs a little bit more time up in this level to acclimate himself to some of these guys that he's never faced before. I think he's just fine. And honestly, I don't even think that this upper Maegashira area is that great to begin with. Like Gonoyama, I think is too high. Chiyoshoma seems too high. Takanosho, Ichiyamamoto, all seem too high. Tobizaru, same. Takayasu, I don't know if he can hang with the big guys anymore. Kinbozan is at like his best spot ever or thereabout. And Ura's Ura. You never know what you're gonna get with him. I just as far as fun guys go, it's a very fun group. But if you're looking for winners, I think you have to be looking at our Maegashira 1 East, and he's the only guy that makes real sense to me.
And just be careful here because I know some of the favorites of the fans are in this group right here. Takayasu, Ura, Wakamoto Haru, very, very popular.
Hey, listen, if Ura, Takayasu, Takanosho, if their fans want to prove me wrong, I will happily take their slings and arrows if they prove me right, because I'd love to see one of their guys win a U show someday.
I would love to see an Ura U show today, tomorrow, and every day. But
Oh yeah, that would be the dream.
so next up, we have in the M6 through M10 ranks Hirado Umi, Takeru Fuji, Shodai Tamawashi, Atami Fuji, Oshoma, Hakuoho, Endo Nishikigi, and Shonano Umi.
I
And
think this is the one where we're going to differ, but
okay,
we'll see.
all
On
right.
three. One, two, three. Atami
Takeru
Fuji.
Fuji. Oh, so we both okay.
Okay.
I think actually Atami Fuji is a great pick, and I was seriously considering it because this is the first time he's been this low in so long, and I think this might be the audience that he needs to regain his form. But Takeru Fuji's just the guy that I want on my team. The purple Mawashi, his having won a Yusho in the past, his consistency, his record. I just can't not pick him when he's on the board. So that's why I couldn't say no to Takeru Fuji being on my team. But you want to explain your pick?
Takeru Fuji is a very easy guy to wrap your arms around. I mean, his lightning ascension, over the last 2 years is just the stuff of legends. But, when it comes to guys who have proven themselves at this level, I think Atami Fuji is the guy. Like the last time he was anywhere below the Joy, he had back-to-back 11 win records. In fact, the last time he was at Maegashira 8, he had a Junyu show and won a special prize. And what's great about where he is right now is he's right in the area where he'd have to potentially face Takeru Fuji or a Hakuoho. But because they're stablemates, he doesn't have to fight them until a playoff. So
Hmm.
he gets to bypass a whole bunch of guys who could really give other people trouble. And I think he's just in the perfect position to have his best record in, gosh, a year and a half already. I think this could be a tournament where Atami Fuji really shines. And that's it may seem a little bit risky after his 5-10 last time, and gosh, 4 losing records in the last 5, but I'm ready to gamble on him.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think what you pointed to against who he's going to be facing is a really important point that's easy to forget about, at least for someone like me who forgets about that all the time. So, we can quickly kind of explain to our viewers who are newer to sumo that you're not allowed, that they won't have you face off against someone who's in the same stable as you unless it's a playoff scenario later on. So, because of Tommy Fuji and Takeru Fuji and Hakuoho and many others are in the Isegahama stable, which is humongous and extremely loaded with big talent. None of these guys will face off against each other, which often leaves them facing off against some of the easier opponents, certainly when you're on the lower half of the Banzuke. Just to quickly run through who's in here. So, in the Makuchi division from this stable, we have. Oh, sorry. What am I missing? Yeah,
No,
sorry.
but you got them
So
all.
it's Takeru Fuji, Atami Fuji, Hakuoho, Midori Fuji, Takara Fuji, and Nishiki Fuji, all in the Makuchi division, all from Isegahama stable. And there was one person who was a member of this stable who is no longer, and that was Terano Fuji, who would have been included in that in previous tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. And now that the Yokozuna is no longer in their stable, all of the Isagahama guys can try and challenge for a Kinboshi if they get the chance. Their chance at beating the Yokozuna. But we'll get to that somewhere down the line. The bottom line is that Maegashira 6 through 10 might honestly be the toughest spot right now, just in terms of who is here. You've got a previous tournament winner in Takeru Fuji, a 2-time winner in Tamawashi, a bunch of, rising stars in Oshoma, Shonanumi, and Hakuoho, a past title winner in Shodai, a longtime fan favorite in Endo, and you've got Nishikigi down there, but we don't need to talk about him. But it's a very competitive area, and I would not be surprised in the least if someone in this section is challenging for the U show over the final weekend. It's just, this entire area is just so darn good.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of challenging for the title, let's now name our pick for the final category, M11 through M18. I'll go through the names real quick. Midori Fuji, Meisei, Takara Fuji, Onokatsu, Nishiki Fuji, Shishi, Ryuden, Churano Umi, Aonishiki, Sadano Umi, Asakoryu, Koto Shoho, Mitaki Umi, Shiro Kuma, and Toki Hayate. And the possible Yusho winner, in my opinion, let's say it on
We're
three.
definitely going to have the same guy.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, Onishiki.
Aonishiki, of course. Of
Yep, of
course.
course.
Tell us about him.
The Ukrainian Dynamo, as Danilo the Dynamo, using his real name. He has just been an unstoppable force. People who are like old heads in sumo might say that he looks a little bit like Baruto, a long time great sumo wrestler, but he just has such a unique story to his rise. I mean, he got up here all the way from the bottom of the Banzuke in, I think, just 10 tournaments, which is absolutely crazy. He only needed 2 tournaments in Joryo to reach this level, which is insane. He is not even 21 years old at the start of this tournament. He will not be 21 years old until the end of this tournament, and nobody's really been able to consistently figure him out. It's like every time he gets a new challenge, he quickly figures out how to get through it. He had he went 22-8 in his 30 matches in Joryo. He went 18-3 in Makushita. He just blew past the previous three divisions on his ascension, winning his first 20 matches. He has just been an unstoppable force, and it has not mattered yet what you put in front of him. He just keeps on churning, keeps on pushing until his enemy is gone or until he just runs out of energy, which has been rarely. I literally cannot stop glazing this guy. All I can say is watch out for this guy because he might even be a dark horse Yusho contender. He has been so good up the ranks. It would not be surprising at all to me if he replicates what Takeru Fuji did this time a year ago.
Same all over. And it's one of those things. He's an unknown quantity, so of course he could end up being, a disappointment in the division. But I choose not to think that way. I choose to look at what potential he has, and it just seems like very, very often we constantly come back to this point in each tournament that when someone is entering the division for the first time, other wrestlers often it takes them some time to adjust to this person's style. And I don't know if there's a person out there whose style is as unconventional and unpredictable and more time consuming to adapt to than Aonishiki's. So when you look at who he's going to be facing, a lot of people who have never seen him before, I think they're going to struggle against him. And because he's starting off at M15, this is what happens all the time, that these guys who come up, they're facing off against the weaker opposition at the very beginning for at least that first week. He could start the tournament 7-0, and he's already in the Yusho race. Then they'll start giving him some tougher and tougher opposition. But that's what makes it that guys from the very bottom often are in the Yusho hunt till the very end because they get that kind of head start. Whereas the guys at the top are facing off against the best of the best in that first week and getting picked off early. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Aonishiki's in the Yusho hunt towards the end of the tournaments. At the very least, I think he's a safe bet for double-digit wins.
Yeah, I mean, listen, nobody's really figured out how to prevent him from getting being 5 wins over 500 yet. Like in his entire career, he has finished every tournament at least 5 wins above breaking even. Until someone proves that until a bunch of guys can prove that he's just not up to the challenge. I don't see why. That said, there have been guys recently who have kind of, reached this level for the first time and hit a roadblock. In fact, I crunched the numbers before we did this, and the last 5 guys to make their debut in Makuuchi, they all had losing records and all got bumped down on their very first attempt. So, maybe this will prove to be, the wall that he hits and is, unable to rise above it at this age just yet.
True, it's always
But
possible. But although the
mhm.
two of the names that we've been talking about a lot today, and to use your term glazing, Takeru Fuji and Onosato at one point, not too long ago, were those guys, and look where they're at now. So it's always possible.
Yeah, and it's just he doesn't look like Takeru Fuji and Onosato, which is why it's so easy to overlook him. Those two guys are, barely close to about 2 meters tall and a lot heavier than him. He seems very small, which is why he's easy to underestimate. But he's got championship judo skills, which are very useful in sumo, and just an unceasing motor and one of the best coaches in it. Like, I'm sorry, I'm glazing him again. I feel like I've spent, half this entire podcast just talking about how much I love this guy. I'm not saying all I'm going to say is I am confident that he won't have a losing record, but I can understand if he finally hits the wall. It just
Sure.
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, someday maybe. And then for anyone who hasn't had the privilege of seeing Onishiki fight before, easiest way to imagine his style is just Google an image of Sisyphus. And actually, I pulled one up here that I think is pretty accurate. Pretty much just if you imagine Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill, that's roughly what Aonishiki looks like, and he does a glorious job with that approach. What do you think?
I thought for a second you were going to say that Onishiki is the ball, but the way his fighting style, yes, where he just leans down and just plants his head into the chest and dares you to try and, swat him away before his judo skills take over. He's so cool to watch, and I look forward to seeing him in the final 2 hours for a very long time.
Yeah, and there's a couple of names down here at the very bottom that are still worth mentioning. Like I think Shishi being back up is really exciting to
Yeah,
see.
Shishi won his first Yusho at any rank ever last tournament. He's a guy that may have finally found his sumo. You've got three guys from the Isagahama ranks. You've got, the wily Midori Fuji, the old man Takeru Fuji, and the guy who all the survivor Nishiki Fuji. You've got the guy everyone hates, Ryuden. You've got Asakoryu coming back up. You've got Mitake Yumi, the former Ozaki. A couple of in-betweeners in Toki Hayate and Shirakuma Kota Shoho. And just some guys that have been pretty fun to watch, like Sadanoumi, Churanoumi, Onokatsu, and occasionally Meisei. So, these are guys that can give you some entertainment, while you wait for like the heavy hitters to step up to the dohyo. All right, well, I think we might as well make our Yusho picks. So, do you want to do that on three as well?
All right, let's go for it.
One, two, three.
Onosato.
Hoshoryu.
Oh, sure. All right. I like that.
Yeah,
That would be
hey,
exciting.
listen. I know I said that Onosato is my Kachi Clash pick, but just hear me out here. History is on Hoshoryu's side. The last two times we had a Yokozuna promotion, the new Yokozuna won their debut tournament at the
Oh,
rank. Yeah, Teruno Fuji won his debut at Yokozuna, and Kisano Sato won his debut at Yokozuna. Now, granted, the two guys before him didn't, so, I'm probably about 50-50, but, I like the idea of our Yokozuna proving all of the naysayers wrong and winning his first tournament. I think this is how it goes. He drops his first match of the tournament to Abi, then just obliterates the joy, goes basically unbeaten for the next like 10 or so matches, struggles a bit over the final 5 days, and winds up beating maybe Wakataka Kage or Atami Fuji in a playoff for a 12-3 U show.
wow. Well, I would love to see that. Personally, I'm going with Onosato as I pretty much do at every tournament. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's just been, from the moment I got into sumo, he's just been rising and rising and rising. And then he wins 2 out of 3 tournaments last year. And I just can't get enough of this guy's face, not to mention the memes of his hilarious stare. I just love Onosato. He's always my pick until he proves why I can no longer trust him. But he just has this ability to always be in the hunt and to, win consistently. So if I had to put money on the line, it would definitely be Onosato. But my number two guy would actually be Aonishiki. I could totally
Mm.
see him being in the hunt until very late. And then I think Hoshoryu is also an excellent bet. But I just had to mention Onishiki one more time because I think there's a really good chance he'll be in it. And let's not forget Kotozakura could absolutely be in this.
Yeah, it would be really something if the guy goes from Karuban to Yusho winner in the span of a month. I think it really put into perspective how close he came to being a Yokozuna last tournament, but it is what it is. And this has been the New to Sumo podcast. And we absolutely cannot wait for March and the beginning of a new era of sumo. Any final words for the crowd?
Let's get to it. I can't wait. Been waiting too long.
Heck yeah. Take care, everybody. See you at the end of the tournament.
Every champion you'll meet, ring the gong, it's time to learn. Sumo tales at every turn.